عاجلا بفرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. أرواحنا له الفداء لقضاء حوائجكم وتيسير أموركم. صلى الله على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين وأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، المعروف في أعلى السماوات بأحمد، وعلى وجه الأرضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، ولا سيما حجة الله في الأرضين وقائم الهداة المهديين، عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. يقول سيدنا ومولانا سيد الأولين والآخرين الحبيب المصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إذا كان يوم القيامة ينادي مناد من بطنان العرش: أين زين العابدين؟ فيقوم ولدي علي بن الحسين يخطو بين الصفوف. Our dear Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, when it's the day of judgment, a caller will call out from the side of Al-Arsh, where is Zayn al-Abidin? So my son Ali ibn al-Hussein will step forward between the rows. تعجيلا بفرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان, to hasten the holy appearance of Sahib al-Zaman alayhi salam, and to be among his supporters and companions. Please recite one loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. In this holy night of Friday, and in this painful occasion of the martyrdom of our Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, we offer our condolences to the Imam of our time, Al-Imam al-Hujjah al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar, Ajjallahu ta'ala Farajahu al-Sharif. And inshallah, in this night, we will enter to the school of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam and try to learn from his holy life and get closer to him alayhi salam and know who is the adornment of the worshippers, Zayn al-Abidin. And as we mentioned in this narration that we have just recited, it was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam who gave him this name, Zayn al-Abidin. 40 years before the birth of the Imam alayhi salam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa was foretelling his companions about the coming of this great son, who will be Zayn al-Abidin, the adornment of the worshippers. One day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa while he was sitting with his companions, and this is how it's happened. Rasulullah was sitting with Abdullah bin Jabir al-Ansari, Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, and some other companions, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was only 4 years old, entered. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa respected him, kissed him, and put him on his lap, and started to tell his companions about the greatness of his son Hussein and the greatness of Ali ibn al-Hussein. So he said, when it would be the day of judgment, a caller will call out from the side of Al-Arsh. So this caller is ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where is Zayn al-Abidin? Where is the adornment of the worshippers? So my son Ali ibn al-Hussein, son of this Hussein, will step forward between those. The caller is ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show the greatness of Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. And when, in the day of judgment, in front of all the creation of Allah, in front of everyone and all the messengers and the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where is Zayn al-Abidin? Only one person will step forward. only one person will answer this call. And this is Zayn al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Hussein, salawatullah wa-salamu alayhi. Inshallah, in this night, we'll get our hearts and minds closer to our dear Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, and know more about him alayhi salam. And this is the advantage and the benefit of these weekly lectures and majalis. May Allah reward all the dear brothers and sisters who arrange these majalis and who are spreading the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We ask the Almighty Allah by this holy night to fulfill all their hajat and to give them more tawfiq in the way of the service of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam by the blessing of one love, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To start with, dear brothers and sisters, you all know, or some of you know, that each one of our imams had his own way in preaching the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and facing the tyrants of his time. So while Imam Hassan alayhi salam chose to do sulh with Muawiyah, a peace agreement, you see that Imam Hussein alayhi salam decided to fight Yazid, the son of Muawiyah. And when you come to Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, you see that they faced oppression, dhulm, with ilm, with knowledge. And they established the first biggest Islamic university in Al-Madinah Al-Munawwar. And when you come to Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, you will see that Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam used a totally different way. And to understand this new way of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, we should go back in history and understand the condition, the hard, difficult condition of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. All of you know that the Imamate of Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam started in the time of the cruelest ruler of the Umayyads, of Bani Umayyad. Who was the ruler at the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam? Dear brothers, all of you know it was Yazid. And Yazid, only in 3 years, this Yazid committed 3 of the biggest crimes in the history of humanity. In the first year, he killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It was the tragedy of Karbala, and took the daughters of Rasulullah as captives from Karbala to Sham. On the second year, he made the second biggest crime, the massacre of Medina al-Munawwar, or what is called Al-Harabat, where 10,000 were killed and slaughtered. 1,700 of them were from Al-Muhajirin and Al-Ansar and Al-Ashab, the companions of Rasulullah. And after killing the men, they invaded and raided the houses of Medina and the women and children. And you cannot imagine how horrible crimes they did in this invasion. This was in the second year. On the third year, he attacked the most sacred land, Makkah al-Mukarramah, and hit the holy Kaaba with the catapult, with rocks and fire, until the holy Kaaba, al-Kaaba al-Musharrafa, was destroyed and burnt into ashes. And all these crimes were happening at the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Imagine, dear brothers and sisters, how much painful it was for the Imam, for the heart of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. And did the crimes of the Umayyads finish by the death of Yazid? No. Did the other Umayyads came, and they were no better than Yazid, especially in the time of Al-Hajjaj, who is known in Arabic as As-Saffah, the slaughterer, whose prison was full of men, 50,000 men, and full of women, 30,000 women, until to the extent that 10,000 women died out of torture and whipping inside the prison of Al-Hajjaj. You can imagine the level of suppression and oppression at that time. And all these crimes, and all this was happening in the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. So Imam alayhi salam was in this difficult condition. From one side, he wants to carry out his heavenly message and spread the principles of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But on the other side, he sees all these difficulties, this difficult, hard condition, these conditions which are surrounding him. So Imam alayhi salam started a new way, a totally different new way to face the tyrants of his time. Imam alayhi salam started what was called the silent revolution, or what is called today and nowadays in the media, they call it the soft war. Imagine this nice term, the soft war. It's a war, but it doesn't have any weapon. What is the soft war? It is a war which depends mainly on the weapon of media. And nowadays, you see that media has become the most powerful weapon in the whole world. And whoever controls media, whoever controls the mass media, can reach to whatever he wants in the world. And Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam used the same soft war against the Umayyads. He was the first one to use this soft war against the Umayyads. And with this, he was able to weaken the Umayyad government and to take revenge from all the killers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and to keep Karbala alive and spread the principles of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the main ways and the main weapons that Imam alayhi salam used in this soft war were four important strategies, four important points. One, the revolution of tears. Two, the school of dua. Three, the weapon of ilm. And four, the human resources and tabligh. And dear brothers and sisters, these 4 points is really a treasure given to us by our Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, which can be used by anyone who is serving the cause of Allah, at any time, at any age, at any Husayni, at any center, at any mosque, at any group of dua like this group. These 4 points is an effective strategy and guidelines for everyone who wants to work for the mission of Allah and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And inshallah, in this night, we'll discuss briefly these important points and how to benefit from these points in our life course towards Allah and towards serving the Imam of our time, Ajjallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Inshallah, we'll discuss them, starting by one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first weapon in this soft war is the weapon of weeping and crying. You may ask and you may wonder, how can weeping and tears be a weapon? We come and ask those who work in the media fields, and they will say, and they will answer, that all means of media, the TV, the internet, the magazines, whenever there is an important incident in the world, whenever there is any war at any certain country, they will look for a photo or a video of a child who is crying, and they will put it with intention at the beginning of that news report. And all of you have seen that. Or they put that photo with intention on the first page of that magazine. Why? To attract your attention and to affect you and move you. And actually everyone, me and you, and everyone who has got some affection in his heart will be affected by that affection it's seen. Let me tell you another example. Imagine you are going from here back home and you see on the corner of the street a child crying. You will ask why he is crying. What are the reasons of his crying? But you may say that at the end he's a child and children normally cry for any simple reason. But imagine on the same place you see a respected man crying. It will be more strange and unfamiliar to see a respected man, a gentleman crying in the street. And these scenes are used by the media and are used by this software. And this is the same way that Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam used to remind people of the tragedy of Karbala and how they killed and slaughtered his father Imam Hussein alayhi salam, thirsty on the desert of Karbala. Imam alayhi salam used to seize every chance from the very first days after Ashura, in the caravan of Sabaya, in the caravan of prisoners, in every stop to remind of Karbala and what happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. From the very first stop, where did the caravan of Sabaya stop first? Where did the caravan of the prisoners stop after Karbala, dear brothers? In Kufa. In Kufa, when they arrived to Kufa, from the middle of the main street of Kufa, on the 12th of Muharram, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam started his famous lecture of Kufa, Khutbat al-Kufa. And he reminded the people of Kufa and told them about the calamities of the day of Ashura and how they slaughtered his father, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and killed all the companions and the children and even the little infant, Abdullah radiyallahu. While Imam alayhi salam was shedding his tears and made everyone from the people of Kufa cry. You may ask, what is the benefit of the crying of the people of Kufa who did not support Imam Hussein alayhi salam? And inshallah, we will answer this and you will know the value of this crying of the people of Kufa. But then after Kufa and all this stops, Imam alayhi salam used to remind of Karbala. Then after Kufa in Mosul, then in Sinjar, then in Aleppo, then in Homs, then in Lebanon, in Baalbek, where Sayyida Khawla is buried now. Then in the last stop in Damascus, at the palace of Yazid, where he gave again his famous immortal khutbah, the khutbah of Sham. And dear brothers and sisters, when you come to the words of this khutbah of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, and you examine these words, you see that these words is like a majlis of azab. Look what the Imam alayhi salam says. أنا ابن المقتول ظلما أنا ابن محزوز الرأس من القفا أنا ابن مسلوب العمامة والردى أنا ابن العطشان حتى مضى أنا ابن من رأسه على السنان يهدى I am the son of the one whose head moved on the speeds حتى ضج الناس بالبكاء والنحيب. When Imam alayhi salam said these words, the people of Sham started crying and weeping to the extent that Yazid was so afraid from this powerful reaction of the people of Sham and was afraid from any uprising of the people of Sham. So he released the family of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So this weeping and this crying, this silent revolution caused the releasing of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So Imam alayhi salam, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, took the sabaya and the heads of shuhada and returned to Karbala and joined the heads with the bodies on the day of Arba'in. And then he returned to Medina. But even until he returned to Medina and after that, throughout his whole life, throughout 35 years, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam used to remind of the tragedy of Karbala and what happened to Imam Hussein. In every instant, whenever he see a grave digger, and you know why. Whenever he sees a stranger in Medina, whenever he sees a butcher, and you know why. Whenever he sees water, he will cry and he will remind people of the tragedy of Karbala. And this weeping and these tears, day after day and year after year, affected the hearts of the people. and awakened the conscience of many people, even the people of Kufa, who did not help Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this is the answer of that question. Where thousands of the people of Kufa declared their repentance and declared their regret for not helping and supporting Imam Hussein alayhi salam. 3,000 men of Kufa, they formed what is called Thawrat al-Tawabin, the revolution of the repenters. And they formed majalis for 3 nights, and they cried for 3 nights for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Then they moved towards fighting the Umayyads on the borders with Syria, on the famous battle of Ain al-Warda, by the leadership of Sulaiman bin Surat al-Khuzai. This revolution was caused by that weeping and those tears, by that soft war, by that silent revolution. And even after it, these tears caused the revolution of Al-Mukhtar. Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi. And all of you know who is Mukhtar, and how Mukhtar controlled big parts of Iraq and weakened the central Umayyad government in Damascus. And he was able to take revenge from all the criminals who participated in the killing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, like Umar bin Sa'd, and Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, and Shimr bin Dhil Jawshan, and Harmala, the killer of children. And all this revolution was because of that weeping and that soft war of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. And now you come to know part of the power of that silent revolution of Imam Zayn al-Abidin and that soft war which was waged by Imam alayhi salam. And until today, you see many people that through this crying and weeping, they came to know the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They saw Shias cry. They come and ask why you are crying. They come to know about the tragedy of Karbala. They get affected by it. And then they knew. And then they start to know how this soft war led to victory and led to these revolutions. And that's why you can find someone like the leader of India, the Mahatma Gandhi. The Mahatma Gandhi comes and says, I learned from Hussein. I learned from Hussein how to attain victory while being oppressed. Through this soft war and through this silent revolution. This was the first weapon of the Imam alayhi salam, which was the revolution of tears. What was the second one, as we mentioned? We've just mentioned it. The second weapon which was used by the Imam alayhi salam was dua. And all of you know this narration, hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he says, الدعاء سلاح المؤمن. Dua, supplication, is the weapon of a believer. And this weapon was used by the Imam alayhi salam. Imam alayhi salam in those days in Medina, he was in a condition of a semi-house arrest condition. He could not move outside Medina. And he wanted to spread the principles of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to the furthest point in the Islamic world. So what does he do? So Imam alayhi salam started to spread his ideas and knowledge in all fields of life through his du'as, through these du'as and supplications. So Imam alayhi salam used to gather some of his close companions and teach these du'as to them. And then these close companions will teach it to their close friends, and then it will spread out, and then it will spread out the boundaries of Al-Madinah al-Munawwarah. And that's why when you come to the du'as of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, which is collected in this wonderful book, As-Sahifa As-Sajjadiyya, and you see the titles of the dua, you see that it does not limit only to the spiritual side and to the relation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it goes beyond that to all the other aspects of life. Because Imam alayhi salam wanted to convey all these other aspects of life. And for the Umayyads, what is the danger of a dua? Dua is a supplication between man and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they didn't feel the danger of these du'as on their government. And these du'as were spreading out. You find that it has all the relations in the society, the relation with your society, with your parents, with your relatives, with your neighbors, with Muslims and non-Muslims. And it has all the aspects of life, the educational, the moral, the social, the ethical, and many other aspects. Imam alayhi salam put all his feelings and all his knowledge in this book, Sahih al-Sajjad. And that's why it's considered the third most important book of dua for the Shias and the followers of Ahlul Bayt. The first important book for a Shia, for a follower of Ahlul Bayt, is the Holy Quran, Al-Quran. The second most important book is Nahj al-Balagh of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the third most important book for a Shia is As-Sahih al-Sajjadi of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. Imam alayhi salam puts all his feelings and all his knowledge in this book. And that's why you cannot find a supplication book better than As-Sahih al-Sajjadi in the whole world. And that's why it's one of the most important books in the main library of Vatican, the capital of Christianity. And this dua book is actually a treasure. We have a treasure, and this treasure is inside a box. And we have the key for that box. But unfortunately, we do not bother our fingers just to turn that key and open it. We have Mafatih al-Jinan in our houses, but we don't open it. It has the 15 munajat of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, the 15 munajat of Sahih al-Sajjadi. And dear brothers and sisters, these 15 munajat is actually a remedy for every spiritual pain. It is a remedy for every heart. It is an efficient cure for the heart. And in addition to all what we have mentioned, just now in the 20th century, scientists of physics, they have discovered some scientific facts which was mentioned 1,400 years ago in the du'as of Sahih al-Sajjadi. People of that time, at the time of the Imam alayhi salam, were not understanding the words of the Imam alayhi salam. And what does the Imam mean when he says in his tasbihat in As-Sahih al-Sajjadiyya, Subhanaka ta'lamu wazna ash-shams wal-qamar, Subhanaka ta'lamu wazna dhulmati wal-nur, Subhanaka ta'lamu wazna al-fay wal-hawa. What does the Imam say? Imam alayhi salam says, glory be to you, you know the weight of the sun and the moon. Glory be to you, you know the weight of the darkness and the light. Glory be to you, you know the weight of the shadow of the earth. People of that time didn't understand the words of Imam alayhi salam. And how can light, nur, have a weight? Or how could shadow have a weight? Until now, just recently, in the 20th century, the scientists of physics came and discovered the weight of light. And discovered what is called in physics the photons. And even at that time, in the 20th century, they were not sure of the weight of the shadow. Until just now, recently, before 12 years. Only before 12 years, in 2003, they came to discover the weight of the shadow and the notion of neutrinos. And Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is mentioning these facts in a phrase, in a line of his supplications, of his du'as towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while he's praying and weeping and glorifying the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the beauty of the school of the supplication of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. And how beautiful it is to know our Imams alayhi salam more and get closer to them. This was the second weapon. The third and the fourth weapon, I will tell you briefly about them, and inshallah just end the lecture with them. The third weapon which was used by the Imam alayhi salam was the weapon of ilm. And Imam alayhi salam faced the dhulm, the oppression, with ilm. And he started to form small circles of scholars. And he started to invite scholars from different countries and formed a firm basis for the University of Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, which flourished later on the time of his son, Imam Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and taught thousands of scholars and ulama the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. This was the third weapon. And the fourth and the last weapon was a totally different weapon. A totally different new way, which was not preceded by any of the Imams before him alayhi salam. At that time in the Medina al-Munawwara, there were thousands of slaves from different backgrounds, different countries, different languages. You have Romans, Africans, Persian, Turkish, Indian, from all the other nationalities. And these slaves will not form any danger for the Umayyads. It's true that the Imam alayhi salam was under house arrest in his house, but no one can prevent him from having slaves in his house, at his home. So Imam alayhi salam had this amazing idea. And the Umayyads cannot think of a danger of a slave. What is the danger of the slave and what can he do? So Imam alayhi salam used every year to have a group of slaves, 50 of the slaves from different backgrounds. And he will bring them to his house. He will receive them kindly. He will over them with his mercy and kindness and affection. And for one whole year, they will be the guests of the Imam alayhi salam. Imam alayhi salam will give them from his knowledge. He will educate them. They will be under his affectionate care. And imagine a man whose life was full of humiliation and suffering. And suddenly he finds this merciful heart of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. What will happen to his heart? He will be overwhelmed with the love of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Then after one whole year, Imam alayhi salam will gather these men in the day of the Eid, and he will give a good amount of money for every one of them, and then he will tell them, you are free in the way of Allah, fi sabilillah. And take this amount of money and start your own business, a business for yourself, a trade for yourself, and travel to your country, and in your way, spread the knowledge and the love and the morals of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. That's why now you find the lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in the furthest point of the Islamic world. You go to the furthest east, to the islands of Philippines. You see in the day of Ashura, although they are Sunnis, they made circles for Quran reciting, and they dispute water for the love of Imam Hussein. You go to the west, to the heart of Europe, in Tirana, the capital of Albania. You find them in the day of Ashura, mourning Imam Hussein alayhi salam and doing majalis for him. Because Imam alayhi salam had even some Roman slaves who were freed and went back to that side of the world. And this was the fourth weapon of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But the most important matter, which did not leave the mind and the thoughts and the heart of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam was the tragedy of Karbala. And how they killed his father, Imam Hussein, and how they slaughtered him. And they killed all his brothers and cousins, and they killed the little infant, Abdullah al-Wadi. He will never forget the pains and sufferings of the caravan of Sabaya, and the chains of that caravan of prisoners. Till the end of his life, till after 35 years, when Imam alayhi salam was poisoned by Walid bin Abdul Malik, Imam Baqir alayhi salam, his son, can see the signs of the chains on his neck and the injuries on his neck and on the feet of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. Till those last moments of his life, Imam will not forget those moments when his father, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, was killed thirsty on the desert of Karbala. And whenever they will put water in front of him, he would say, كيف أشرب الماء وقد ذبح والد الحسين عطشان. How I'm going to drink this water, and my father Hussein alayhi salam was killed thirsty on the desert of Karbala. One day Imam alayhi salam passed through the market of butchers. He saw a butcher with a knife in his hand. He said, Ya Abdullah, did you give water to this sheep before slaughtering? He said, Yabna Rasulillah, we never slaughter a sheep before giving water to it. He said, Aba ya Hussein, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Ya Abdullah, اعلم أن والد الحسين قد قتل عطشانا ذبيحا على أرض كربلاء. Then let me tell you, O butcher, that my father Hussein was killed thirsty and slaughtered thirsty on the desert of Karbala. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونتوسل إليك بحق هذه الليلة الشريفة، ليلة الجمعة، بحق شهادة سيدنا ومولانا زين العابدين عليه السلام. إلهي نتوجه ونتوسل إليك بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والأئمة التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. فرج عنا يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك المهدي الفرج والعافية والنصر. اجعلنا من خير أنصاره وأعوانه والمدافعين عنه والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم أرنا الطلعة البهية والغرة الرشيد، واكحل نواظرنا بنظرة منا إليه. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه وأوسع منهجه واسلك بنا محجته. اللهم من كان في مجلسنا هذا صاحب حاجة، إخواني الحاضرين، أخواتي الحاضرات، اللهم اقضي حوائجنا، يسر أمورنا، فرج همومنا وغمومنا، شافي مرضانا بحق مريض كربلاء علي كربلاء زين العابدين عليه السلام. ارحم أمواتنا، وخاصة ولا سيما أموات البانين بهذا المجلس المبارك. إلى أرواحهم جميعا نهدي للجميع ثواب السورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها بأعلى أصواتكم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.